Have you ever found yourself facing someone who seemed perfect, polite, composed, even charming, yet something inside you screamed beware? That feeling of unease you couldn't explain, that shiver down your spine that made you doubt your own instinct? If you're nodding as you read these words, know that you're not crazy. You're not alone. That inner voice you heard might have saved you from something far more dangerous than you imagined. Carl Gustav Jung, one of the giants of modern psychology, dedicated his life to understanding these phenomena, these moments we all experience. And what he discovered could forever change the way you look at the people around you, and more importantly, the way you look at yourself. His conclusion is as simple as it is shocking. The most dangerous people are not those who openly show their wickedness. They are those who believe themselves to be completely good. They are those who never see their own flaws, who never sincerely apologize, who turn every conflict into a morality lesson for others. And if you're thinking, I know someone like that, keep reading. But also prepare to look in the mirror. Because we all carry this possibility within us. Think about your childhood for a moment. Do you remember when you learned that certain behaviors were wrong? Maybe it was the anger that exploded when your brother took your toys. Maybe it was the envy you felt seeing a friend's success. Or maybe it was simply the desire to be the center of attention. That desire your parents taught you to consider selfish. All those pieces of you, the anger, envy, selfishness, fear, need for control, didn't disappear when you learned they were bad. They simply went into hiding, into what Jung called the shadow. And there, in the darkness of your unconscious mind, they continued to grow, to influence you, to control you in ways you don't even suspect. Maybe you recognize yourself in this dynamic. Have you ever exploded in anger and then wondered, where did all that come from? Or have you ever harshly judged someone for behavior that deep down you recognize in yourself too? That's your shadow knocking at the door of consciousness, demanding to be seen. Jung had a phrase that should make us all reflect. What you resist persists. The more you try to deny a part of yourself, the more that part gains power over you. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. Sooner or later it will resurface, with a force that will surprise you. Here's where things get really interesting and personal. Have you ever noticed how certain people irritate you disproportionately? How you react excessively emotionally to specific behaviors in others? That intense reaction doesn't say as much about them. It says everything about you. When you see someone who makes you angry because they're too aggressive, ask yourself, what's your relationship with your own aggressiveness? When you criticize someone for being too sensitive, reflect. How much do you allow yourself to be vulnerable? When you judge someone for their selfishness, ask yourself, when was the last time you put your needs first without feeling guilty? Jung said something profound. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. It's not easy to accept, is it? It's much more comfortable to think that the problem is always other people. But if you have the courage to look within, you might discover something unsettling. The people who disturb you most are mirrors. Mirrors reflecting parts of yourself that you've refused to see. Now we come to the heart of the problem, to what Jung considered the most dangerous type of person. And here you must be really honest with yourself, because you might recognize yourself in this description. And that's okay. It's part of the growth process. Do you know someone who always sees themselves as the innocent victim? Someone who can never admit they were wrong. Someone who turns every apology into an explanation of why it's actually your fault. Someone who helps you even when you haven't asked for help, and then gets offended if you're not grateful. These people are dangerous not because they're bad. They're dangerous because they believe themselves to be completely good. They've identified so completely with the image of themselves as morally superior people that they've lost all capacity for self-reflection. And when someone can't see their own flaws, they can't control them either. They become unpredictable, destructive, dangerous. But here's the uncomfortable question you must ask yourself. Have you ever behaved this way? Have you ever justified your manipulative behavior by saying it was for the other person's good? Have you ever refused to apologize because deep down you were convinced you were right? Have you ever made someone feel guilty for not appreciating your help? If the answer is yes, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you're human. But recognizing it is the first step, the crucial step, the step to avoid becoming one of those dangerous types Jung warned us about. Maybe, as you read, you're thinking of someone in your life who perfectly fits this description. Maybe it's a parent, a partner, a boss, a friend, and maybe you're realizing how much this relationship has made you suffer. If so, I want you to know that what you've experienced is real. It's valid. The emotional exhaustion you feel after interacting with this person isn't imaginary. The confusion about your own memories isn't paranoia. The feeling of walking on eggshells isn't hypersensitivity. When you interact with someone who completely denies their shadow, your mind is constantly questioned. You find yourself thinking, if this person is as good and wise as they claim to be, maybe I really am the problem. You begin to doubt your perceptions, your feelings, your very sanity. This process has a name, gaslighting, and it's not your fault if you fell for it. These people are incredibly skilled at presenting a facade of reasonableness and virtue, a facade that makes it difficult to question their behavior. But now that you know what to look for, you can start protecting yourself. You can start trusting your instinct again. That feeling of unease you experience isn't wrong. It's your mind warning you of a real danger. Now comes the most difficult, but also most liberating, part of this entire journey. Jung didn't give us these tools just to recognize others. He gave them to us to recognize ourselves. And this requires a type of courage. A courage that not everyone is willing to show. Think about your relationships that ended badly. Think about the conflicts you've had. Think about the times when people distanced themselves from you. Now, instead of focusing on what they did, ask yourself, what might have been my role in all this? It's a terrifying question, I know. It's much easier to believe that we were always the innocent victims. But if you have the courage to explore this possibility, you might discover something incredibly liberating. Your flaws don't make you a bad person. They make you human, and recognizing them gives you the power to change them. Maybe you realize you have difficulty apologizing sincerely. Maybe you discover that you have a tendency to control the people you love, justifying it as concern. Maybe you recognize that you have the habit of giving unsolicited advice and then feeling offended if it's not followed. If you recognize these patterns in yourself, don't despair. On the contrary, congratulate yourself. You've just done something that many people never manage to do. You've looked your shadow in the eyes. And this is the first step, the crucial step toward true personal growth. Jung called this process individuation, the journey toward realizing your most complete and authentic potential. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. It's about embracing all aspects of yourself, even those you'd prefer to hide. When you begin to recognize and accept your shadow, something magical happens. You stop projecting it onto others. You become less judgmental, more compassionate, more authentic in your relationships. Not because you've become good, but because you've become aware. A person who has integrated their shadow isn't free of flaws. They're aware of their flaws and actively work to manage them. They know when they're wrong and have the courage to admit it. They know when they're hurting someone and have the humility to apologize. They know when they're projecting their problems onto others and have the wisdom to stop. This doesn't mean you become a saint. It means you become human in the fullest sense of the term. It means your relationships become more authentic because you're no longer hiding parts of yourself. It means you can finally stop wasting energy maintaining a facade and start using it to truly grow. As you proceed on this journey of self-discovery, it's important that you also learn to protect yourself. Not everyone is ready or willing to do this work on themselves. You'll continue to encounter people who deny their shadow. When you recognize these patterns in others, don't try to save them or make them see reason. It's not your job. It probably won't work. Instead, focus on yourself. Establish clear boundaries. Keep a journal of problematic interactions to resist gaslighting. Seek support from trusted people who can offer you an objective perspective. But above all, continue working on yourself. Every time you feel that pang of judgment toward someone, stop and ask yourself, what is this person teaching me about myself? Every time you feel irritated by someone's behavior, reflect, where do I see this same behavior in myself? This doesn't mean you have to tolerate abusive behavior. It doesn't mean all problems are your fault. It simply means you use every interaction as an opportunity to know yourself better, to grow as a person. What Jung gave us isn't just a psychological theory. It's an invitation to live more consciously and authentically. He showed us that real danger doesn't come from those who openly admit their flaws. It comes from those who completely deny them. He taught us that true strength doesn't lie in pretending to be perfect. It lies in having the courage to be human. When you begin to live with this awareness, your relationships change. You become more attractive not because you're perfect, but because you're authentic. People feel safe with you because they know you won't judge them for their flaws. After all, you recognize having them too. You also become more perceptive in recognizing people who might be dangerous to your psychological well-being. That feeling of unease you once ignored you now recognize as an important signal. That inner voice that told you to be careful you now listen to with respect. As we conclude this journey into the human shadow, I want to leave you with a profound reflection. Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." It's easy to spend life looking outside, criticizing others, waiting for the world to change to make us happy. But true awakening begins when you have the courage to look within. I'm not asking you to become perfect. I'm inviting you to become aware. I'm not asking you to no longer have flaws. I'm inviting you to recognize them and work on them. I'm not asking you to never judge anyone again. I'm inviting you to use every judgment as a mirror to better understand yourself. This journey isn't easy, but it's the most important one you can undertake. Because in the end, the only person you can truly change is yourself. And when you change, the way you see the world changes. The way you relate to others changes. The quality of your life changes. The next time you meet someone who insists on always being right, who never apologizes, who always sees themselves as the innocent victim, remember, the real danger isn't in the presence of darkness. It's in its denial. And then, with the same honesty and compassion, look within yourself and ask, how might I also fall into this trap? Because only when you recognize your shadow can you begin to integrate it. And only when you integrate your shadow can you begin to truly live.